We'd like to continue with the meeting. First order of business is we need a motion to exit the executive session.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to exit executive session. Mr. Secretary, would you call a roll call vote, please?
All those in favor of adjourning out of executive session will, as their names are called, answer yes. Those opposed will answer no. Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Vice Chair Viehwiger.
Yes.
Trustee Borgamenki.
Yes.
Trustee Kashani.
Yes.
Trustee Evans.
Yes.
Trustee Platt.
Yes.
Trustee Smullen.
Yes.
Trustee Coleman.
Yes.
We are now out of executive session.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move to Audit and Risk Management Committee. Chair Evans, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome to the Audit and Risk Management Committee. We have a very simple agenda today. I'd like to welcome our Chief Audit Officer for the first time before us in person, Marion Condrea, to give the Chief Audit Officer update and to present the annual audit plan. Welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Evans. So, if I could get this to work. Okay, good morning. It is still morning, I believe. It is good to see all of you here in person. I'm really excited to be here for my first in-person audit committee meeting. So this morning, I'm just going to start with a quick update on the FY21 audit plan status. So these are the audits from the FY21 plan. Since the last meeting, we have issued the Southern Regional Campus Audit Report, the 3 other regional campus audits, Lancaster, Zanesville, Eastern. Those have all been completed. They will be issued following the exit conferences, which are scheduled for next week. The final 2 audits, institutional research and athletics compliance, which does have a focus on apparel and equipment, those are in progress. We are in field work on those, and we do plan to be completing those this summer. So I wanted to spend the rest of the time this morning presenting the FY22 annual audit plan, which will need to be approved by the board. I want to walk you through my process for developing the plan and also highlight some of the other activities that the Internal Audit Department plans to undertake this year. So the annual plan is really what drives the work of our department throughout the year. I started this process back in April, and one of the first things that I did was I wanted to kind of read through historically what that annual process has been like. And one of the things that I noticed was historically the plan has been very focused on applying a standard audit program to a rotational schedule of auditable units around campus. There are about 90 identified auditable units that really span from academics, administration, athletics, IT. It covers the entire institution. So I think there's a lot of value in this. I think there's a lot of value in doing it this way, so I do want to continue that. But what I'd also like to do is try to diversify the plan a little bit this year. So I did identify a few unit audits that will be on the plan, but I also wanted to throw in some compliance and process audits. So what I did was I met with a number of senior leader and management across the institution to get some of their feedback on some areas and processes that they felt presented a higher risk. I had conversations with Larry Wines about some of the enterprise risk management efforts. And then I also took into consideration just some of the trends in higher ed and some of the emerging risks that we're seeing as an industry. And so ultimately that is what formulates into the FY22 annual audit plan that will act as kind of my framework for updating you throughout the year. So this next slide just kind of shows a timeline of that process. So as I had mentioned, I had started this back in April, so I spend the last quarter of a fiscal year really going through that process. That middle section right there is executing the plan. And so as I had mentioned earlier, the last 2 audits from the FY21 plan will carry forward into the summer, and that is to be expected. And then lastly, at the bottom, in those green bars is talking about just communicating those results. As we issue audit reports, all of the Audit and Risk Management Committee members will get a copy of those reports along with a standard distribution list that we have. And so if you have any questions on reports, you're more than welcome to ask me those during these meetings. So as I had mentioned, the Southern Regional Campus audit was issued since the last Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting. So we'd be happy to take any questions on that report if you have them. Okay, so this is the plan, and these are the identified audit projects. Now, when I think of an audit project, I think of something that's really going to go through those traditional audit steps of planning, fieldwork, reporting, obtaining management responses to our recommendations, and then executing follow-up to see the status of the client's implementation of those recommendations. So you can see at the top the completion of the FY21 audit that is work in progress. And then the next two items on there are 2 Ncaa rotational audits, and these would be compliance audits. So the Association of College and University Auditors, which we are all a part of in our department, they have these guides of 21 different areas that cover all aspects of the Ncaa bylaws. It is best practice amongst institutions to have set up a rotational audit cycle where you go through each of these guides every 4 to 6 years. So I had been talking with Eric Hildebrand, and we had thought that governance and rules education would be two good ones to start with because they really are foundational to every other area that the audit guides cover. So we are planning to do those two this year. We are also going to do a review of IT general controls. This is a review that we do about every 2 years. This is not a specific review of OIT, but rather a review of some IT controls that really are applicable across the institution. The 2 unit audits that are going to be included on the plan are Instructional Innovation and the Russ College of Engineering and Technology. The process audit on the plan is export controls, and likely this will touch upon foreign influence, but all of that will be set during the scoping process. And then, as we have done in the past, we will assist the external auditors with the Ncaa agreed upon procedures. So these are some of the other internal audit activities that we'll undertake throughout the year. And I reference a document here that I included as an appendix that I won't go over in detail, but it's called this Audit Response Continuum. I did not create this document. It's a tool that I have been using for years in kind of determining what resources we might need for a project and really what potential deliverables could be. You know, oftentimes I think people think of audit and that they think of that traditional audit report as a deliverable, but that does not have to be the case in the services that we're able to provide, particularly when it comes to special projects. So we do plan to continue with our monthly P-card continuous monitoring that we do. We've been working with the controllers group, and we will continue to work with them throughout the year as the revised P-card policy continues to go through its draft form, adjusting our procedures as need be, and really trying to work with them to continually improve and enhance that process. We plan on doing some audit readiness work in anticipation of the Higher Learning Commission accreditation, which is set to occur in 2024. And we plan to provide support to the Office of Information Technology on their IT risk assessment of the foundation that is set for this year. We continue providing support for construction auditing services. Working alongside design and construction, we just completed our RFP process, interviewing firms, and we did select 2 final firms to provide those services in the upcoming years. And then lastly, any other special projects or investigations that come up, you know, I do allocate a handful of hours on the plan specifically for those ad hoc requests that might come up throughout the year. And then on the bottom, I did want to highlight 2 internal projects that do end up taking some time from our department. So one is the annual plan risk assessment that I go to that does take up quite a bit of my time in the last quarter of the year. And I also wanted to highlight this university hotline migration and monitoring. Ohio University has utilized Ethics Point for a number of years as their anonymous reporting mechanism. And it has historically been a phone intake only option. And I thought it was important, just in keeping up with the technological and digital world that we live in, to also offer a web intake option. I would hate for it to be inconvenient for someone to be reporting a complaint if they felt so inclined. So we are coming to the tail end of that, moving over to a different Ethics Point platform that has a nice new website. It continues to allow phone intake, but it also now will allow web intake. Once that's complete, I do plan to use that as an opportunity just to do some outreach and education in the community to remind people that this does exist. I do anticipate that we may see a slight uptick in cases once that web intake option is web option is available, and so I've allocated some time in the plan to make sure we can cover that. And so that really concludes my presentation of the plan. I believe that it needs to be approved via resolution by the board, and Secretary Moore, I'm not sure if that happens now or if they just would recommend it tomorrow during the voting.
We'll need to vote on it now as
Okay.
part of the.
Yeah, the committee will vote on it now to be sent for the main meeting tomorrow. Okay, we have the annual audit plan resolution before us. Thank you for the presentation. And a quick reminder, the voting members of this committee, since we've moved things around with the Cooper administration. The voting trustees are Trustees Borgomecki, Smullen, and myself. So is there a motion to send the resolution to the main board for approval?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Borgomecki. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion passes. Any further business? Any further questions, comments?
I am happy to take any questions about any of the material we covered today, about the Southern audit report, or last month I had also submitted to the board an annual assessment that listed some of my FY22 goals, and I would be happy to answer any questions about that as well.
Well, we know where to find you.
Okay.
All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the meeting of this committee.
Thank you very much, Trustee Evans. We now have a motion before the full board from Audit and Risk Management. And I would move the approval of the annual audit plan resolution. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition, say no. Any abstentions? Motion carries, Mr. Secretary. Now I'd like to call upon Governance and Compensation Committee and turn the matter over to Committee Chair Platt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Lori Platt, and I'm honored to serve as committee chair. First on our agenda is the election of secretary to the board. The resolution is on tab 10. As a reminder, voting members of the committee are Kashani, Coleman, Scholl, and myself. Is there a motion for sending this resolution to the full board with recommendation for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Second on our agenda is the election of treasurer to the board. There's an updated copy of the resolution in your OneDrive. The revised resolution states, Resolved that Deborah Schaefer be elected Treasurer of the Board of Trustees for the year beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending August 20th, 2021. Is there a motion for sending this resolution to the full board with a recommendation for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Is there any further business? Seeing that there is none, this concludes the Governance and Compensation Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a motion before us to approve the election of the board secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, are there any abstentions? Mr. Secretary, the motion passes. We also have a motion for the election of the board treasurer through the ending date of August 2021. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the election of the board's treasurer ending August 2021. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the motion carries. Mr. Secretary. Does that conclude our business for this morning?
I believe so. I'd like to remind the trustees that we are going to leave here a little after noon, 12, to walk up to the Academic Engagement Center. We'll sort of all go in a large group if you want to come together. And then we'll be returning here in the afternoon.
Can we leave our things here?
Yes.
What time will we reconvene?
I believe the academics committee starts at 1:45.
Very well. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.